Pokemon. Have you heard of it? This golden goose of a franchise has sold countless pieces of merchandise ranging from trading cards to plushies to even clothing. But all that takes a back seat to the many video games that have been released over the last 20 plus years since its initial release in Japan. Spanning multiple console generations, 8 diverse regions, and almost 900 of these little monsters, I think it's safe to say that this series has been quite successful. But of course, the more successful something is, the more attention it starts to grab. Attention inevitably breeds controversy. The most recent of which surrounds the newest releases in the series to date, Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield. These two games have undoubtedly received the most backlash from fans out of the entire mainline series of games. From reused animations and low-quality tree textures to even cutting half the Pokemon. At this point in the series, especially with the Nintendo Switch hardware, fans were hoping for just a little more. But, as disappointed as people were, these games did push the series a few steps in the right direction. A lot of mechanics were streamlined and made things progress a lot faster, including the overarching objective to catch them all. With all that said, let's take a look at these two games and look more into what fans were so worried about when it came to release. Also, spoilers ahead. First off, let's start with the graphics. Despite some issues here and there, which I will cover in a bit, this is indeed a Pokemon game in HD. The colors pop and environments are vibrant. An issue I had with the previous games on the 3DS was that the graphics were sort of off-putting to me, and I know that was most likely because of the hardware limitations. I'm just weird like that, I guess. But it's satisfying to see the style that the games have established over the past few years fully realized in HD. Something that I mentioned a bit ago is that animations were being reused. While that is indeed the case for the most part, they did create some new animations. Mostly for a lot of new Pokemon or Pokemon-specific moves. A lot of the old moves have just been slightly updated with cleaner particle effects and whatnot. As I mentioned before, most of the environments are vibrant and colorful. The first example that comes to mind is the town where the 5th gym battle takes place, Balanlea. As soon as you enter this town, there are pinks, purples, and blues everywhere slapping you right in the face. It really surprised me the first time I arrived. Up until that point, there aren't as many areas that are as colorful as Balanlea. It's not just the towns either. There are many Pokemon and characters that are well designed and add a lot to the game's presentation. Overall, the graphics are fine. Nothing game-changing by any means, they work for this kind of game. Now, let's move on to the characters and story. When you think of Pokemon, the first thing that comes to mind are the game's groundbreaking stories, right? Yeah, I didn't think so, but I think that's okay. The story that Pokemon Sword and Shield does have is fairly standard. You're a young 10 to 11-year-old kid and you are given your first Pokemon. The professor of the region, in this case Professor Magnolia, then tasks you to travel the region and catch them all. You'll meet some interesting characters along the way, one being your rival Hop, who is also the younger brother of the Galar region's champion Leon. You'll also meet Marnie, who is the younger sister of a gym leader, and Bede, who is a challenger endorsed by the chairman. Speaking of which, Chairman Rose. He's a character that exists, that's for sure. You meet up with him every now and then throughout the story, and it's crystal clear from the beginning that he's the game's big bad. You know he's trying to do some vague, evil thing, but his motivations are never quite that clear. The game tries to trick you into thinking that Team Yell, the supposed evil team, are the ones causing havoc, when in actuality, Rose and his company of goons are the evil ones. His number one admin, Oleana, is constantly slowing you down and stopping you in your tracks. It's not until near the end of the game when a cutscene happens between Rose and the champion that his motivations come to light even a little bit. Nothing about what he's trying to do is mentioned at all up until that point. Only right as you're about to battle Leon is when people go, "Holy crap," Rose pops up on a monitor and he says he's going to quote-unquote change the world. He does so by releasing the legendary Pokemon Eternatus. You then must team up with Hop and the legendary Doggos to defeat it. A classic case of bits and pieces of evil here and there, only to climax around the 7th or 8th gym. In this case, it wasn't until right before the champion. Better late than never, I suppose. All in all, the story is fine. It has its ups and its downs. There is an epic part, however, during the final battle that I feel takes Pokemon a huge step forward. You'll know it when you see it. I've already mentioned a lot about the graphics and general presentation, but I have yet to talk about the music. I might be a little biased on this part because I am a sucker for music in games. The music is a big part of why I love the games that I love. Pokemon Sword and Shield have some really great music. From the soft, adventurous sounding track in the starting town of Postwick to the upbeat, almost dubstep sounding track that plays during gym battles. I think these games have given us some of the best music in this series to date. Every song is well orchestrated and expertly put together. Even the creator of Undertale, Toby Fox, composed a song for the games which plays in the Battle Tower during the post-game. I don't really have much to say about the music. It's pretty good. That's it. If you've ever played a Pokemon game before, then you're going to know exactly what you're supposed to do. You have your Pokemon use moves on the opposing Pokemon to lower its HP, then you throw a Pokeball at it if you want to catch it. If it is a battle between two Pokemon trainers, you need to lower the opponent's HP to 0 in order to win. When you defeat or catch a Pokemon, you'll gain experience points or EXP. The more EXP you gain, the sooner you'll level up. When a Pokemon levels up, they might try to learn a new move, or once they reach certain levels, they'll evolve and become even more powerful. If you're a player that likes to catch them all, I have some good news for you. The whole catching process has been streamlined this time around. A little ways into the game, you get an item from the professor's assistant, Sonia, called the Pokemon Box Link. This item allows you to access the PC at any time, which means you can put Pokemon in, take Pokemon out, and you can even change your Pokemon's nicknames anytime you want. The previous games had things like Mega Evolutions and Z-moves, but this time around the gimmick is something called Dynamax. This is something you can only do in certain locations where Dynamax energy is present. This ability lets you bond with your Pokemon and cause them to turn into gigantic kaiju-like monsters. It only lasts for 3 turns though. Along with being giant and more powerful, the Pokemon gain special max versions of their moves. All of this does add a sense of scale and intensity to gym battles, even though some of the early ones do end up with you Dynamaxing and sweeping their team. A special version of Dynamaxing, called Gigantamax, is only available to certain Pokemon. A few examples are Pikachu, Eevee, Meowth, Charizard, Gengar, and Butterfree. But there are loads more. All Gigantamaxing does is cause your Pokemon to take a brand new form. It's purely cosmetic though. All of the benefits gained from normal Dynamaxing stay the same. There's just one more thing that I want to talk about, which was one of the biggest things that was widely advertised about these particular Pokemon games, the Wild Area. This is an area in the game that you gain access to fairly early on. In this area, you can, get this, rotate the camera. As silly as it sounds, this is indeed a first for the Pokemon series. It's kind of surreal in a way because it feels like Pokemon is finally catching up with every other game ever made. Pokemon roam around freely in the wild area. All you have to do is run into one if you want to fight. But you have to be a little bit careful though, because you soon find out that certain Pokemon in the wild area are incredibly overleveled. So it does add a bit of surprise and difficulty, but if you do manage to defeat one, you'll gain a lot of experience points. Another thing you can do is participate in something called a max raid battle. Scattered all over the wild area are pinkish red pillars of light. Go towards them, and you and 3 other trainers can team up to take on a Dynamax Pokemon. Once you defeat it, you'll have the opportunity to catch it. At the end, you'll collect some rewards, like EXP candies that you can give to your Pokemon. This feature also houses the online component of the games, in that you can team up with friends or random people across the globe to fight some Dynamax Pokemon. My overall opinion is sort of mixed. I'm a fan of Pokemon, but not big enough of a fan to threaten the developers on Twitter for removing half of my favorite Pokemon. These games both push the series a few steps in the right direction and keep it chained down in the past. The battle mechanics are getting stale and the graphics leave something to be desired, but like I've said before, I think that's okay. As long as the series is taking the steps needed to slowly become modernized, I'm fine with that. And as of recording this, Game Freak has announced an expansion pass for both games that'll add even more content down the line. I'm not a pro game reviewer by any means. I thought I would just give my thoughts on a game, and Pokemon Sword and Shield was my first pick. I know I didn't cover every single little thing that can be found in this game. I thought I would just cover the things that I feel matter the most. If you want to see more review but not really style videos like this one, let me know and I'll be more than happy to oblige. This video took a lot of work to put together, so I would appreciate it if you hit that like button and consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching.